Hello, my name is Jake Satisky, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Chronicle. To my left is Nathan Luzum, managing editor. To my right is Leah Abrams, opinion editor. And we're here to break down the Super Tuesday results and fill in some live updates as if they come. I'll start out with some of the big races of the night. We saw Joe Biden convincingly win North Carolina with 43%, nearly doubling Bernie Sanders' second place tally of 24%. CNN was able to call the race the moment the polls closed due to exit polls, so very convincing win for Joe. Not surprisingly, Donald Trump also won North Carolina. In the Senate, you saw Cal Cunningham win also pretty convincingly, beating out Erica Smith 57% to 35% with 94% reporting. For governor, Roy Cooper, as an incumbent, no problem. And he'll be facing Dan Forrest, who is currently the lieutenant governor, and they'll be facing off in November. And for lieutenant governor, neither race for Republicans or Democrats has been called, but with 94% reporting, Mark Robinson for the Republicans has a convincing lead, and with the Democrats, Yvonne Hawley is up 5 points on Terry Van Duyn. So now we'll turn it to Nathan to talk about sort of the Duke-Durham angle.
Yeah, so to approach this from the Duke angle, Duke's campus had an early voting site in the Broadhead Center. And they just released some stats on how the early voting turnout looked there, and it was very surprising because we have students had an estimated early voting turnout of 34%, and that's more than 3 times what the early voter turnout was elsewhere in the state of North Carolina, which was around 11%. And then kind of going in, students weren't the only Duke actors in this race. We had Ronnie Chatterjee, who's a professor in both the Fuqua School of Business and the Sanford School of Public Policy. A very close race for NC State Treasurer, but he currently, with 93% of precincts reporting, holds around a 10,000 vote lead over his closest competitor. And just to give you an idea of how close this three-way race is, he's at the lead with 35%. The second place candidate has 34%, and third place is at 30%. So as you can see, a very close race that's been close all evening, but he's slowly pulling out to a lead, if you can consider 9,000 votes a lead. And then just kind of taking a look at Durham County in general. So currently we have 51 out of 57 precincts reporting in Durham County, and Joe Biden has won the Democratic presidential primary vote by more than 6,000 votes so far. And Bernie Sanders coming in second place. But if you just focus on the precinct that includes Duke's West Campus, Sanders has a pretty good lead over Biden. And just kind of a fun fact for the presidential turnout in Durham County, the people who voted no preference on the Democratic presidential ticket got more votes for no preference than Tom Steyer, Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, other people down the ballot. So it's interesting.
Now we'll go to Leah to talk about other trends and her thoughts on the election.
Yeah, so I just sort of want to weigh in both as a North Carolina resident and as somebody who follows politics pretty closely on what Super Tuesday means going forward in the rest of the race, what we can take away from it both in the presidential level and down the ballot. One of the things that is crazy and super interesting to watch is I think that, after the first few debates, a lot of people, myself included, kind of wrote off Joe Biden, thought his campaign was, dying and fizzling out. And I think what we're seeing is that, especially after South Carolina, after Jim Clyburn, Joe Biden's campaign is really picking back up. And he's been, dominating in most of the states so far, especially in southern states like North Carolina. You see this really clear lead, which again, for me, definitely was unexpected, or at least it's definitely been a higher lead than I expected, which is interesting. I will note that we're still waiting on final results from Texas and California. And I think that's a really important thing to look at is, we're certainly going to be looking at who wins more states today over the course of the day, but we also have to think about the number of delegates that each candidate is going to be getting from those states. So with Texas and California, those are really populous states. California carries, I think, 415 delegates. So whoever wins that is really going to take a strong lead. So we'll be anxious to see as those states continue to come out who we can call them for. It looks like Texas is leaning Sanders right now. It looks like, with how much reporting?
Not sure. Let's see.
Some amount reporting.
About 26%, I think.
20. Okay, so we're still waiting on the majority, and California polls have just closed. So we'll be anxious to see how Texas and California come out over the course of the rest of the night. For me, another thing that was shocking, we're all here in Durham County, we're all on campus all the time, so I think we're sort of inundated within our own circles. And looking at the results, you see that Durham County actually pretty resoundingly went for Joe Biden, which I was surprised by. I think a lot of students might be surprised by as well. But it's an interesting takeaway to see how wide his appeal is across the state of North Carolina. In addition to that, looking down the ballot, I did want to touch on the Senate race. A lot of us on campus live in Senate District 20, where Natalie Murdoch has taken a pretty resounding lead with 51 of 57 districts reporting. So it's looking like going to be the Democratic candidate for that state Senate seat in the North Carolina legislature. The final thing I want to sort of mention is it's really neat to see the high turnout at Duke, and I think that's something we can all be proud of as people who have been following politics, covering politics, committed to sort of activating our own right to vote. I think we should all be proud of the high turnout that Duke has had in comparison with other college campuses across the state, and in comparison with young people in general. So we should be proud of the way we turned out in this election.
Yeah, Duke had one of according to EQV Analytics, Duke had the highest early voting turnout among college campuses in the state at 34% among 18 and 22-year-olds.
I'll say the next highest is Carolina, so we just beat our rival by 12 percentage points.
Yes, we did. And the state turnout for all voters was 11.4%, so extremely high turnout here, something very much to be proud of. And please follow more our Super Tuesday live blog on DukeChronicle.com. And thanks for watching.